Hey everyone, Alan Wellman here, certified grief educator, hospital chaplain, and certified spiritual life coach. I'm so glad that you're joining me on this webinar to discuss how people get stuck and why they get stuck in their grief. We're going to discover a little bit of the myths around grief. We're going to discuss why people get stuck. And then I have such great news to share with you about this program that I have found and I've adapted and adopted to help others get through their grief. As many of you have heard from my story in the past, in the last 10 years, have suffered many losses. I suffered a job loss. I've suffered a move across the country, leaving my life in Chicago, ending up here in Los Angeles. I have had long-term relationship and endings. And I've also lost both of my parents. I've lost several family members and significant people and players in my life, as well as two dogs. And because I have gone through this journey, I understand the challenges that are associated with losses. But the good news is I discovered a method and a process which is structured, it is gentle, and most importantly, it works. So most people get stuck in their grief because they believe a very common myth that time heals all pain. But that isn't exactly true. Time doesn't heal grief, especially when something is left unfinished. Very often people will replay moments in their grief, wishing that they had said or did something differently, or they wonder how things might have changed if, fill in the blank, or you wonder, how did I miss that lump on my dog, or any other situation that kind of surprises us when a loss happens. And as a result, we often carry guilt that says, I wasn't a good enough provider. I didn't take care of them. Or the worst are the shoulds, the coulds, and the would haves of guilt. And it's strange because we get that even when we know we did our best. And some days we'll be walking around and our grief will be fine, and other days, bam, it hits us like a bolt of lightning out of nowhere. But we have to recognize that if we have the same thoughts, we carry the same weights. And if we carry the same weights, we go into the same sort of looping and rumination. And it's not because you are doing anything wrong or you're broken. It's because your grief has not been completed. So many people in discussing and learning about grief are taught how to cope. We're giving them skills or we give them techniques. So imagine back to our childhood. We come home from school and someone was mad at us, and then we go to our parents and they say, "Oh, don't be sad. Here's a cookie." Well, that is a coping mechanism. But few people are not taught how to deal with the issue so that it completes the grief. And grief is the accumulation of unspoken words. For instance, things that were never said. Sometimes it's things we don't say to ourselves, but also sometimes it's said to the other party or the person or the doctor or the nurse or the pet. And usually it is about the relationship, how we felt about them in the relationship. Grief is also the accumulation of unexpressed emotions. Feelings that now that the loss has happened, there's no place to put them. And finally, unresolved moments in a relationship, whatever that relationship is. I use that term very generally here, but whether it's with a dog or a partner or a parent or a job, there are usually conversations that are started but are never able to be finished or completed before the loss happens. And that has such a profound impact on how we move through our grief. And until those are addressed, Your mind keeps ruminating and looping back to the loss. I say this very often, and I fully believe this, that grief work is identity work. Because when you lose whatever it is in your situation, you lose a part of who you were. You lose the part of you that was who you were with them. You might be a partner. You might be a caregiver. You might be a, a teacher, or whatever your position is. But whatever that is, once the loss happens, you also lose that sense of identity of who you were in that. You might have had a role. So if you were a caregiver, if you were the one who was taking care of your dog or your cat or your parent or maybe a child, that was part of your identity because you had a role. And once that relationship is ended because of the loss, you forget to recognize who you are. And finally, there is the anticipation, the expectations, the future that you are counting on or hoping for. Sometimes it could be the ordinary day-to-day routines that are in our lives, but sometimes they're milestones, big birthdays, maybe anniversaries, maybe there's a graduation that's coming, maybe a wedding day that your parents won't be at. Whatever it is, you have to grieve those future expectations. And most people try to manage their grief. They try to mitigate it. But you see, this only helps them just to get by, just to function. It doesn't resolve anything. You see, what most people try to do is they try to stay busy. They try to take on more so that they become distracted. Or they avoid thinking about the person or the job or the loss altogether. And last, they try to be strong, whether it's for themselves, for their families, for other people in their life. They try to be strong. But you see, that just pushes the grief below the surface. And as a result, we end up having exhaustion from the emotions that we're trying to mitigate. We feel disconnected or isolated from others because no one seems to understand, or we feel like we have to go alone. And as a result, there is this quiet sense that something is not quite right with us. But I have good news for you, and that is there is a way to resolve your grief. And it isn't by forgetting or forcing yourself to move on, but by completing what was left unfinished. And this method is structured, it is grounded, and having gone through it myself, having adopted it for my own grief work and adapting it for others, I can unequivocally and honestly tell you that it works. And what makes it work is that it is not resulted or we don't focus on all the reasons why you are who you are today, but rather we focus on those relationships to keep it relevant, keep it focused, and keep it structured in your healing. So it isn't about forgetting. We have to recognize that the love that we had for the people, either the relationship, our parents, our dogs, whatever it is, that stays. But we have to complete the work of what was left and felt unfinished when that rupture occurred. And it focuses on the relationship, not just the emotions that you're feeling, because it's not enough just to be sad or fixated on the grief and this and the isolation. Rather, we have to recognize that there's an entire spectrum of emotions that we feel. And last, this program gives you a path forward. It's structured, it gives you direction, and it isn't just a bunch of endless open-ended questions, but gets to the heart of your grief. So the Spirit Renewed Grief Method has 4 phases. However, the end result and the path is always the same, to get you on your road, on the pathway to your healing. And the first pillar of this is reveal. We have to bring clarity to what you're actually carrying. What is it you are feeling? Who or what are you missing? Why are you missing it? We have to get that clarity. So we begin the process by revelation. Then, once we get clear, we're able to begin the conversation to release. That is, to say what needs to be said. Let it move through us. I often say emotions require us to have movement in order for our healing. Then we move to repair. This is completing the emotional relationship, not changing it, not saying the death or the end of the relationship or the job loss didn't occur, but recognizing that, okay, this has ended. And finally, it leads us back to reclaiming our identity, reclaiming our power, reclaiming our voice, because I promise you, that on the other side of loss, there is life, there is joy, there is hope. And in the reveal process, we reveal this entire the scope of the loss, because it's never just one thing. It happens in layers. For instance, the relationship. What was the relationship between you and the person, you and the dog, you and the job? Then there are all the moments, the memories that are wrapped up in that relationship. And there are all the expectations that we had for that relationship. So if it is the death of a parent, maybe it's the realization that they'll never see you or walk you down the aisle at your wedding. Maybe it's they'll never know who their grandchild was. Whatever it is, we have to identify for ourselves what is that expectation. In the releasing, it isn't venting. It is not just complaining about what had happened. In fact, it's very structured because it says what needs to be said. We acknowledge what was never expressed. And finally, we learn how to release the emotional charge tied to that loss. Very important. And this is where we recognize that we can carry the love forward without carrying the pain. In the repair pillar, we really try to look at what is the emotional relationship. And we don't change it, we don't deny it happened, but we recognize that this is what has happened. And as a result, we shift from carrying guilt and regret and the what ifs to where we actually gain clarity. We gain a sense of peace. And most importantly, we gain a sense of resolution. And once we do that, we're able to reclaim and come back to you. Ultimately, you are the one that is still here in this relationship. Your life still goes on, whether it's loss of a job, loss of a pet, loss of a relationship or a family member. You are still here. And we help you rebuild your identity, recognizing who you are now that the loss has happened, and we help you integrate it into the future. So we start looking at yourself, we look at your energy, and we help to move you forward with hope. So this Spirit Renewed Grief Method is different from traditional grief support. It's not just talking, it is not therapy. It is a completion-focused grief work program. And what does that mean? Well, we don't just sit in the grief. We don't just replay the sorrow in our heads or our conversations. We actually move through it. We create an action plan to get you through this grief. So it is structured, it is grounded, and most importantly, It works. It is evidence-based, and there is a very high success rate in my program and the program that I have completed. And what clients experience is simple. It's really a sense of feeling lighter, realizing that, oh, I don't have to carry this weight on my shoulders all the time. It stops the rumination, it stops the looping, it stops the endless mind chatter that clutters our brains. And clients say, wow, I can finally breathe again. I can feel like myself. See, the love stays, but the pain doesn't come with us. What most people don't recognize is that if grief stays unresolved, it doesn't disappear. It follows you into your relationships, follows you into your energy, and it follows you into your ability to fully live. I often say grief, if it's not resolved, is like a beach ball. And you can push the beach ball underwater, but eventually you're going to get tired, your arms are going to get tired, and the force of that beach ball is going to create it to burst to the surface. And that is when we have difficulties in our emotions if grief is unresolved. So I ask you, how much longer do you want to carry this pain, this sorrow, this grief, especially in the way that you've been carrying it? I have a few clients that I've worked with that I'd like to share. First is Maria, who is suffering the pain of her cat. Hi, Maria. Thank you so much for joining me today. Here we are. You've completed the 90 days, first 90 days grief journey challenge, and I want to just check in with you today and kind of hear about your experience. So, would you mind just telling us all where you were when our journey began?
Whew. Um, I was a mess when I lost Guillermo. I was a mess and I couldn't get out of bed. Um, there was this big void, and I knew that I needed to do something. So I'm grateful that our paths crossed and that we were able to do work together. So. Yeah, it was tough in the beginning, but I feel better now.
So, what was the big aha or the big takeaway during our work together?
Um, well, honestly, I think like it was everything. So like our weekly calls, the support group, you encouraging me to journal, especially the journaling. It really helped me reset. It really helped me reorient myself and like I've come to understand that, when a pet passes away, your love doesn't die, that it actually continues to grow. And that was a lot for me. That was a big deal for me. So thank you.
How have you been able to integrate that work together into your daily life?
Well, I was hoping there would be an appearance. I was able to adopt a new cat.
Oh my
His
goodness,
name
that's
is
great.
Leon, and I was really hoping you would be able to say hello. But yeah, so I was able to find Leon, and I'm actually open to the idea of looking for another cat. So like
Wow.
perusing the Humane Society website, seeing if anyone like winks at me that says pick me. So hopefully I'll have a family of two soon.
Wow. That's incredible. When I think back about where you were, it was about, well, I guess now about 4 or 5 months since we
Yeah.
worked together. Um, you know, it's night and day. I mean, I actually see a smile on your face.
Yeah.
And just hearing the joy and excitement. about your new kitty cat Leon.
Yes, yes.
I'm just so impressed that you're keeping up the good work. So thank you
You.
so much for sharing. This has been such a delight to reconnect with you.
Yes, yes. And thank you for everything. Thank you for everything. So I appreciate all your time and your support. And it was just a wonderful experience. I couldn't have gotten here without you. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you. All right, I'll let you go. I'm gonna next I want to share with you a story from Marty. Marty had been suffering for a little more than 8 years. It started with the death of her husband, then the death of her cat, and then about a year ago, the death of her mother.
Hi, Alan.
Marty, thanks for joining me on the call today. Listen, when we first started talking, you were dealing with a lot. You're dealing with the loss of your mom, you're dealing with the loss of your cat, you're dealing with the loss of your husband. Can you just talk to me a little bit about what you were like and what life was like before we started working together?
I was extremely depressed and basically a hermit because I just didn't want to participate in anything. because the kitty died shortly after my husband. And so the grief group has helped me realize that I'm not losing my mind, and has allowed me to share some things about the two of them that are fun and happy memories for me. And that's really brightened my spirit.
Great. And what would you say, what was your big takeaway, or what was your big insight or learning after we had been working together for a few months?
Really, really good to be able to share with other people who have gone through the same thing and are going through it right now, because it helps me deal with it. And to hear their stories, I realize how much we're all alike. I'm not alone, and we're all going through the same thing together. And it's a small group, which I appreciate because I happen to know everybody. So that really helps too. And it's very easy to talk with you as a great leader.
And finally, how has your life changed since we began working together?
Well, it has allowed me to get moving on many things around this house that I have put off for many years. Painting the house is the number one thing, as I mentioned earlier. We're almost done with that now. Now I have to tackle the inside of the house, which is a whole other story. But I'm feeling encouraged that I can take these really heavy things on my heart. I'm encouraged to do them now, and I was not feeling that for 8 years. So that's a huge thing for me. It's really helping me. I'm honest about that. And I haven't had company in 8 years because my house looks like a tornado went through it. So when I get that done, that's my next goal. Then I can have guests again.
Well, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your thoughts with me. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right, take care. Grief is heavy. You don't have to do it alone. And I'm very happy to help you and guide you through this process. I provide an 8-week framework for you to walk through this. And the next couple of weeks, I'm offering a limited number of conversations. I'll do it on phone or Zoom. And it's an opportunity to have a conversation, just hear where you're at, hear what's still unresolved, hear what you've been carrying, and to help you discern whether or not this is the right program for you. I do have my link, my scheduling link on the screen, but I'll also be sure to offer another link in the description below so that you can actually hear for yourself whether or not this is for you. I'd love to connect with you. It is a system and a process that I have gone through, and I feel very confident in sharing with you. And I know that this will be something that will be a good investment for you. Grief is real and it deserves to be honored. You don't have to stay stuck in it. You just have to have a plan, and you have to have someone to guide you through it. And I'd be honored to be that person for you. And when you're ready, I'm here to help.